Hey, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are talking to all of you who are pregnant and wondering, how do I time contractions? Why do I time contractions? When do I time contractions? So let's dive in. Let's take a moment to delve deeper into what a contraction really is. Contractions involve the involuntary and rhythmic tightening and releasing of the uterine muscles to help your uterus fully open and then to help your uterus bear down or push so that you can push your baby out of the birth canal. Each contraction helps efface or thin out the cervix and helps open or dilate the cervix. Contractions truly vary in intensity and in their duration all across the labor, and it can change quite a lot, and it can super vary from person to person. Some people barely register that they are having contractions at all, whereas other people are going to say it is the most intense sensation they've ever had in their entire lives. In the beginning of labor, they can be more mild for many people, and as labor progresses, they get more and more intense, and they get longer and stronger and closer together. But for other people, it's not as varied. And it depends, because if your labor starts really far along and is very short, you might have much more intense contractions in the beginning. And for others who have a much longer labor, you might find them to be relatively a breeze for 12 hours, and then they get more and more intense over time. It can be really different for every person. So most people will feel them deep low, right down in the lower belly. So right, my uterus is kind of here, and they feel them down low here where you might have your menstrual cramps. Other people will feel them in their lower back, and others will feel both. Now that you know more about what contractions are, let's discuss more about how to accurately time them. This will really help you make the decision about when it's best for you to go into the hospital or birth center if you're traveling somewhere to give birth, or when you should call your home birth midwife if you're planning a home birth. You should start timing your contractions when they begin to become regular, more noticeable, more intense, anything that is different than what you've been experiencing before. So when you first start having some kind of sensation, it can sometimes feel confusing, like, wait, I'm having gas again, and then it goes away. And then 7 minutes later, you're like, wait, I'm having gas again, and then it goes away. And then 7 minutes later, you're like, oh, I'm having gas again. There's a pattern. So when you start to notice some sensation that's coming with great frequency, whatever it is, so it's a menstrual-like cramp, or it's a lower back pain, or it's just a sensation of the tightening of the uterus, that's a great time to start contraction timing. You'll want to track the duration of the contraction, which means how long it lasts from the beginning of the sensation to the end, and you'll also want to track the time in between contractions. We time contractions from the beginning of one contraction to the beginning of the next. So if you're having contractions that are lasting 1 minute long and 5 minutes apart, that means every 5 minutes you're having, let's say, a 1 minute long contraction, and then you're having a 4-minute break. And then it's starting again in 5 minutes later, right? If you are having a contraction at 12 o'clock, at 12:05, at 12:10, at 12:15, and each contraction is lasting 1 minute with that 4-minute break, we call that 5 minutes apart. Generally speaking, we can use the strength, the frequency, and the duration of contractions to give us a sense of how far along you are in labor. So contractions in earlier labor tend to be shorter. They tend to, maybe they're 15 to 30 seconds long. They tend to be shorter. They tend to be milder, like most people can talk through them or be doing distracting activities or active, you might be eating a meal, you might be playing chess, you might be watching a TV show. You could be on the phone with somebody in earlier labor when the contractions are mild. As the labor progresses, contractions tend to get longer, stronger, and closer together and more intense over time. And when you get very close to pushing out your baby, the contractions tend to be very close together, as close as 2 to 3 minutes apart and as long as 90 seconds long. So we can really see the progression from early labor to active labor to transition of labor through how long they last and how close they are together. And your midwife or OBGYN will help use that information they have from what you're reporting, which is why we are sometimes timing contractions, so that they can help guide you. In addition to the length, strength, and frequency of the contractions, I do want to add in that there's also what the laboring person is doing. So if you're able to distract yourself or talk, through the contractions, you might not be as far along as somebody who is truly working through their contractions and making sounds, picking those movements and positions, using various pain coping techniques to get through it. You only want to time contractions for as long as you need to establish a pattern, and then let it go. Otherwise, you'd be timing contractions the whole time. And little tip, if you're a partner or a doula or a care support person, your pregnant, laboring person does not want to see you staring at the phone timing the whole time, because then you're not able to help them, right? So that was my sidebar on timing. You only want to time contractions until you establish a pattern, and then let it go until something changes. Either the contraction gets stronger, it gets longer, it gets closer together. Then time again so you can get and figure out the next stage that you're at. So what do the numbers tell us? Well, it really depends on your hope for your birth and your caregiver's wishes about when they want you to either come to the place of birth or when they should come to you if you're planning a home birth. I'll give you the very, very average for people birthing in a hospital. Most midwives and most doctors are going to say, come into the place of birth when you are at the 5-1-1 time. 5-1-1 means that your contractions are 5 minutes apart. Each contraction is lasting 1 minute, and that whole scenario is lasting for a full hour. So this doesn't mean that you run right in when you have 2 5-minute apart contractions, right? You have to have every 5 minutes for a whole hour, which means you're actually going to have 12 contractions before you'd even consider going in. Now, this is going to be according to your healthcare provider, and you're going to be calling them whenever they've suggested it might be the time. So if you think you're 5 minutes apart, they might want to hear from you, and then they'll help decide, is it right for you to come in now or not? Now, for some people who are planning to go into the place of birth, but they don't want to have pain medications, if they want to go unmedicated, many care providers will suggest that you don't even come in until what we call 4-1-1, 4-1-1, or 3-1-1, right? Meaning 4 minutes apart, each contraction lasting 1 minute for a whole hour, or even 3-1-1, 3 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute for a whole hour. You're much more likely to be further dilated, farther along in your labor, the longer you wait. So for people who want to go unmedicated, it's easier to show up at the place of birth hearing that you are 7, 8, maybe even 9 centimeters along, right? Almost ready to push your baby out, is going to be much more motivating for the person who doesn't want to have an epidural. For those of you who know you want to have pain medication, on the flip side, you do not want to wait that long, right? Most people will tell you definitely come in by the 5-1-1 mark. Ultimately, what happens in labor is that your contractions, whatever they feel like, get stronger, longer, and closer together over time. And eventually you get the sensation and readiness urge to push, and then your contractions shift from the more opening you up to the more expulsive and helping you push your baby out. Remember that every labor experience is totally unique, and timing contractions is just one small part of preparing for childbirth or knowing where we are in labor. If you have any concerns or questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your healthcare team. They are ultimately your midwife or OB/GYN is going to be helping you throughout. They're listening to the timing of contractions as well. They're asking you for those reports and helping you make the determination of whether you should go to the place of birth or whether they should come to you if you're planning a home birth. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to other soon-to-be parents. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.